Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about the Nate self. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, what does that make you think about? Well, luckily here I have Jules, who's gonna really help us think about this in a whole new light. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Jules, for coming on to my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with me. So I truly appreciate it. So let's just dive right in. When you hear the words the Nate self, what does that necessarily make you think about?
Yeah, so the innate self is something that is innate in all of us. We all have this sort of spiritual side of ourselves, and some of us are really familiar with it. Some of us are not so familiar with it. And so, what I wanted to do is to help create a framework to help us understand what is the innate self. The innate self, innate stands for our higher nature that has 8 characteristics. And they're really intuitive things. It's things like connection and our need for contribution and our desire for creativity. So the once you start to unpack like what does it mean, you find that like it translates across culture, across people. It's these things in us that long for purpose, that want more joy in our lives, and so that is the essence of the innate self.
No, I totally see where you're going with this. It's truly about recognizing your values, recognizing your morals, recognizing where you stand, your respect for yourself, your boundaries, and uncovering the parts of ourselves that we've kind of pushed aside. Am I right?
hmm Especially, I think the push aside piece. And again, some people like live in more of the this part of themselves than others. But as a coach, part of what I have seen is that a lot of people kind of think of themselves as the thoughts they have, the beliefs they have, our emotions, right? How do you feel about things, and our bodies? Like, how do we literally hold tension in our bodies, and what are we actually doing in our lives through action? And that's all physical. But
Yeah.
but there's this other piece, this other dimension of who we are that is more it's more spiritual in nature. It's more being in nature. And it looks like wanting to think about how what's the impact I'm making?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
am I using my gifts and what are my values to what you just said? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's about recognizing your intentions. You know what I mean? It's seeing where your intentions are for this moment, for this purpose. And is it actually purposeful? Does it actually bring value to your life and to other people's lives? And I love it when people talk about intentions or they bring it up because, oh my goodness, I don't think that people actually think about this enough. You know what I mean? They don't think about how their intentions truly guides their life. Their intentions, you know what I mean, causes like there's a cause and effect by your intentions with your yes that you say now. It's lined up to another yes in the future. What you say no to now is aligned to another no in the future, and we don't realize that. Like, we have to be more intentional with our money, we have to be more intentional with our words, we have to be more intentional with our actions and what we put out into the world and how we service others as well, because it truly impacts our whole well-being. So the fact that you actually wrote a book about this and you're coaching other people to actually refocus their frame of mind, to actually acknowledge, like, you know what, your intentions matter, and to really fall into your purpose, to know exactly what you're doing. We really have to re-guide our lines to our intentions. Am I right?
Well, I think intention's a really interesting one because you have to be intentional about your intentions, and
Yeah.
so there is a presence of mind that you're raising that I think is really important. Well, let's talk about the mind for a little bit because we are in an age where we think about our minds a lot. We've kind of fallen in love with the idea of like I think and therefore I am, and so whatever my thoughts are guide our lives for sure, in both good and bad ways. And so I talk about the mind as being the frenemy. It is a tool that we can wield for good, but it is also something that if we're not conscious of how it operates, it's always there to protect us. Like that's the function of the mind is it wants to make sure that we're taken care of. It wants to make sure that we don't We don't fall into like traps. It's got that survival wiring in there. And so with that, we have like these roommates that live in our minds. We
Yeah.
have the critic, we have the doubter, we have the blamer, and we have an encourager. And so which of the voices are you tuning into? And I think it's that can help us start to understand a little bit more of like what's going on in that guidance system you're talking about mentally. And I think it's a really good way of us just noticing like how we are letting the thoughts that are inside of our head guide the trajectory of our lives or not. And we
Yeah.
have so much power to control that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where self-discipline comes into part as well, because if you are always going by what you're feeling, then you're never going to be disciplined enough to do what you're supposed to do. And depending on which little coach you're listening to in your mind, then you're always never gonna do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? Because you always feel like, oh, well, I need motivation to do this. I need inspiration to do this. Like, no, sometimes you need discipline to keep going, and sometimes we need to rewire our frame of mind, rewire our thoughts so that it aligns in what we really actually want in this world. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you're doing, because I had somebody on my show who explained it in a way where like we have like a little butler in our head, and they're just taking notes of everything that we're saying, everything that we're speaking about ourselves and to ourselves, and it repeats it back to us. So then it's constantly like repeating and repeating things, and then
Mm.
we believe it. You know what I mean? So if we're believing the criticizer, you know what I mean, the judger in our mind, then we're always going to feel down about ourselves. We're always going to feel negative about ourselves. But it's like you said, which one are you really focusing on? Which one is your main driver? You know what I mean? So yes, that is truly something to really think about. So I guess my next question is, why did you write a book about this? I mean, you could have just kept it to yourself. You could have just kept it with just coaching, but why write a book?
Yeah, I think for me, a couple of things were coming together. Like one, I'm seeing where we are socially and kind of the state of loneliness post-pandemic, and I wanted to try to address what I think we have thrown so much energy into what we call like a mental health crisis, which
Yeah,
I think that is true too. But I think we also haven't had a like a framework to understand that it's not all mental that we're struggling with. Part of it is spiritual. Like we're having a
absolutely.
spiritual crisis of sorts.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so trying to create like language and framework to help us unpack that was really important to me. At the same time, like I hit a milestone birthday this year and I really sat back and reflected on like how am I contributing and am I contributing at the level that I want? And that's one of our innate characteristics is contribution. And I as I get older, recognize like the privilege that I've had in my life. And I've had privilege to travel and I've had privilege to like get to work with people from all across the world. And so I really also feel like a sense of responsibility to be sharing that back in some greater way than just keeping it to myself. And it was a huge exercise in discipline. Like I have a kid, I have a small kid, I have a full-time job and coaching practice and all of these things. And so like getting up and writing every day at 5 a.m. was absolutely an act of discipline. But it's good to do hard things. When you do hard things, you remind yourself that you can do hard things. And I
Yeah.
think that that muscle builds, like that's a part of what builds up our courage muscles.
Yeah.
It's a part of what makes us stronger to face adversity. And so also I did it as a like a contribution and a personal practice.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. And it also helps your character. You know what I mean? It builds your character. And that's the one thing that I'm learning and then I'm striving for, is that context develops character. And if you don't have the context
Yeah.
to do something, then you're never going to have the character in you. And it's never going to be something known for you. And it's not going to be who you are. You know what I mean? And I also love the fact that you were talking about spirituality, and this is we're facing this spiritual battle, and people don't realize this.
Yeah.
People really don't. And I say this all the time. Once we work on our physical health, then people start working on their emotional health, then people start working on their mental health, then people start working on their food health. But where's the spiritual health?
Hmm.
Where are we connecting with our spiritual health? Because once you get all of that, then you realize, you know what, something else is missing. What is this emptiness that's still there? And it comes down to our spiritual intelligence. It comes down to our spiritual need for something more than us, binding us with other spiritual beings. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
I think the fact that you also talked about contribution and where is your contribution in your life right now? Where are you contributing with your purpose or your destiny to help others, to serve others? You know what I mean? When we learn to start serving others, then we realize, like, you know what, others will serve us. You know what I mean? And then we no longer are in a selfish season of our life where it's all about me, me, me. What about me, me, me? And then they throw a pity party, they throw up the balloons, they throw up the banner, they have the music, they're all sappy, sappy, sappy. And it's like, no, we don't need to have that pity party anymore. Pity party for one, you can go in the corner. You know what I mean? Like, we ain't about that. It's all about that self-awareness. You know what I mean? That self-awareness that, you know what, I can do something more than what I'm doing right now. And the fact that you're able to push yourself and, you know what I mean, eyes all watery, still trying to like figure it out. I applaud you for that. So it's like my next question is, where does your creativity stem from?
So creativity is one of our innate characteristics, and so I think it's inherently a spiritual thing. We are born creators, and I think that's been infused in our in the way that we've been designed, and I think that for us, like there's so much power in creativity, but we sometimes kind of close it down as we get older. Like we. I have noticed, and I've worked with a lot of people that is, try to push creativity in even with executives, for example, they can get kind of squeamish, like, creativity, this feels a little childish. Like, I'm not an artist, I'm not a painter. They go to this like vision or image of what it is to be creative.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I did address in the book because creativity, we are all creative. And if you
Yeah.
don't recognize yourself as being creative, it's probably because your definition of creativity is too narrow. And
Mm.
so don't just think of the artistic creative. That's one type of creativity, but there are three other types of creativity. There's functional creatives. These are the people who like understand wires and designs and like engineers. They build out our world. They build out our infrastructure and ecosystems that we operate inside of. And then we have cognitive creatives, and cognitive creatives are idea people. They are the people who come up with theories and ideas and like write books. And then we have our innovators, and these are the people who like imagine what life could look like and design into the future. And so somewhere you fall in the spectrum of that creativity model. And some of us have multiple types of creativity. Some of us have maybe like one main modality, but what I've found is that there's like a correlation. This is empirical, but like as people, the higher their level of analyticalness, the maybe the narrower their definition of creativity. And I think that that is so important to creativity is such an important aspect of what it is to continue to become in your life. We talked about intentions. We are the creator of our intentions. Creativity is everywhere. And so if we're not conscious of it, it can be like a huge opportunity lost because we have
Yeah.
so much opportunity to design like our thoughts and the lives we want. And even if you can't control your circumstances, you can control how you handle your circumstances. And then like from that, then like beautiful things are born out of hard moments for so many people across so many stories of history. And so just like having that sort of expansive understanding of creativity, I think it's a really powerful aspect of our spiritual nature.
Oh, absolutely. And it develops our emotional intelligence as well, because when we are creative, we can be emotionally present. And I think the fact that you brought on how very intellectual people, they have a very narrow perspective of creativity. I mean, you are absolutely right. I mean, look at savants. Savants they know numbers, they know dates, they have photogenic memory, they know everything that has happened from the world history, encyclopedias, everything in the world they know, but they cannot create something on their own. You know what I mean? They lack that emotional intelligence. They lack that spirituality. They lack that connection to something greater because they are just like, you know what I mean? Very rigid. So the fact that you're allowing everyone this understanding no matter where you are, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, or whatever, like everyone, there's a part of you that you can adjust, that you can shift, that you can enhance in a way so that you can truly be a better human being in all that you are, because you are already great. You know what I mean? So I think that's a great aspect to for everybody to really think about. So I have to ask you, what are three things you're grateful for in this life?
Yes, I will. I'm going to answer that question, but I want to go back to something you said because I think it's really important that we recognize, like, we're kind of, stereotyping people a little bit on like highly analytical versus not. And the thing I'll just say is that this is a trap for all of us.
All
Like,
of us.
the more that we get caught
All
up
of
in
us.
our minds, our thinking, our judgment, I talk about judgment as like it's a moat and it keeps us separated from connecting with other people. So we have to really, all of us have to really watch that.
Yeah.
And I think that people who live more in their minds are more subject to disconnecting
Yeah.
from kind of that more spiritual being aspect, because they're living in one aspect of themselves, their minds. But it's a
Yeah.
trap, it's a trap for all of us. So we all have to watch that kind of like holistic connection piece of like, we could, some of us get really stuck in our emotions where we're just all the time feeling.
Yeah.
And that also distracts us from our being. And so I
Exactly.
just wanted to make that general statement because I think it's a really important thing for us all to kind of digest.
Oh yeah,
Um,
very valid. Very valid.
yeah. So to your question around gratefulness, so I think about gratefulness a lot. So your question around what are three things I'm grateful for? I have really, as I've gotten a little older, I've gotten very like grateful for my health. I really do believe like health is wealth. And so,
Yeah.
one of the things I did is I gave natural childbirth, and when I did that, so I did it without the medication and stuff, and it was really, really hard. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
most people shy away from it. And I wanted to do it because I was like, if I can do this thing, if I can do this really hard thing in my life, I know that I will always go back and look at that and say, well, if I could do that, I can do this. And so it was like a pillar. And I'm so grateful that I pushed myself and that I did that. Um, and it's really helped me understand how valuable my health is. So that's one thing. I'm grateful that I live in a time where there's so much opportunity for women and there's so much opportunity for like creating your own way forward. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I've definitely felt the benefits of that. And I hope other people have as well. But I also recognize like it's a beautiful moment in time. I just happen to be here at the right time to be able to experience that. That's not what most people across history have had. And so I'm
Yeah.
incredibly grateful for that. Um, and then I would say um, I am grateful for moments of connection. Like I think, I have gotten personally, I've been so inspired by others and so much of I think that the things that make me want to be a better person are witnessing other people who've gone through harder things be incredible beings. And
Yeah.
so, like, one of the things I talk about in the book is like I worked with refugees for quite a while, and it had a profound impact on my life because you're talking about people who like there's this one guy who literally had to go on foot with three children across three countries. He was being he was being like hunted, and his wife died along the way, his baby died along the way, and yet the like person that I met was this beacon of joy. I mean, he just had such a zest for life, and he was the kind of person who would seize every opportunity. And like, oh my gosh, how inspiring, was that for me? And that's also a privilege. So I'm very grateful for kind of that perspective, that has come through connection.
Well, absolutely. I think that's a valid point because when you interact with other people from all across the world, from all walks of life, it really gives you a perspective of appreciation and gratitude because somebody who has lived a completely different life from you, they still find a reason to smile, still find a reason to find joy into their life. I mean, that brings hope that you can continue on, you can continue forward. You know what I mean? So yes, that most definitely is, oh my goodness, something to value because that's why I love talking having people on my guests from all types of walks of life. You know what I mean? Because you don't have to be an author to be on my show, you don't have to be a doctor to be on my show, you just have to be a human being who thinks and has something worth sharing with the world, because I feel like everyone holds some type of value that they can share with the world, because oh my goodness, everyone has these nuggets of knowledge that's just waiting to be released into the world so that somebody else can really think about it and consider like, oh, how can that really impact my life in some way, small or big? So yes, I truly believe that. And also to the point of health is wealth. Yes, I'm on that train as well. I my first child, I didn't have epidural or anything like that. It was all natural, and ever since I did that, it was just like empowering as well. But with my second child, I had a very long labor, and all the doctors basically forced me to get epidural just to speed up the process because you can't be in the hospital longer than 24 hours now with being
Yeah.
pregnant. You're supposed to
Yeah.
pop it and go apparently now. So because of that, my second child, it was I was forced to do the epidural. However, with my first child, it still made me feel empowered and just telling people like, yeah, I didn't have epidural. Like as soon as my water broke, he literally came out 5-10 minutes later.
Wow.
And it was just empowering to know that I was able to do something that bring life into this world in a manner that people don't consider anymore. So yes, I understand how you see that as well.
Mhm.
So, and it sucks that time is catching up to us because I feel like we can continue talking about life, continue talking about our morals and intentions. Oh my goodness, everything. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Yeah. So I think the thing I would say is that we all have kind of this inner spark, this inner light inside of us. And to me, that is the essence of our innate self. And so getting in touch with that, not hiding or not hiding that light. And I
Yeah.
think we often kind of shield it because we're worried about how other people are going to see us or what will other people think. We're worried about the judgment. We're worried about rejection because we are wired for connection. So we don't want to feel rejected. And I understand all of that. It's very understandable, but we gotta kind of push through some of that because your light will attract other people that and there is so much value that you have to share in the world. And so I think just not being afraid of it or not having to have it perfect either. It's like
Yeah.
just share the goodness in you. And I think if we were all to share more of our goodness with each other, like it would just make life better. And I feel like it's such an important thing in this moment where we're living, where there's some social unrest that's happening. We're living in a heightened, divided world, and social media helps with that division. And so it really matters that in the real world, like in our human interaction moments, that we're being kind to one another and just like taking time to see the human that's on the other side. And I think if we do that, we'll all feel a little closer, a little bit more connected, and a little bit more enriched in our lives.
Well, absolutely. I honestly believe what you're saying because when we fall into those comparison traps of envy and security, oh my goodness, it really does hinder who we are and what we can contribute out into this world. I mean, because like I was saying earlier, I mean, we are perfect as we are. We may feel a little broken, we may feel a little empty, but that doesn't mean that we're not whole. That's just a temporary part of us, you know what I mean? That's just a stage of our life, but that's not all of our lives. That's not all who we are. It's not, it's a moment, but a moment doesn't define us. We define who we are, So it's like acknowledging that and moving forward and allowing your light to shine relentlessly wherever you are. Bask in it, embrace it because you don't know who may be listening. You don't know who may be watching, who you never even encounter, but they see you every day and they see your kindness, even just to the barista, even to the grocery clerk, doesn't matter. They see it and they're like, you know what? I want to be like that. I want to see if I can do that. And that is the chain reaction that we need to leave in the world, that to allow people to know that there are kind people, there are gentle people, there are real people who give other people the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Just because you have hate doesn't mean you have to push it on other people. So it's like, yes, that's something to really, really think about. And ladies and gentlemen, if you really enjoy this conversation, because how could you not? How could you not enjoy this conversation listening to Jules and all her great insight? Oh my goodness, such a great time. Please go check her out. I have a lovely photo on my website. If you're already on my website, just click on it, boop, and it goes directly to her so that you can find all of the great content that she has to offer the world. And if you're on audio listening or if you're on YouTube, under the description, you find access to her website so that you can obviously continue on thinking. Because isn't that the point? Yes, it is. So, with that being said, bye.